AI job postings have tripled in the last 5 years. Only 15% of hires in the AI areas are happening internally. So there's a big, let's hire externally for AI. And only less than 30% of those are women.
Coursera's put out this number saying that only about 32% of the people who enrolled into their AI program were women.
Women are waiting for approval, 51%. They're actually waiting for a direction from HR or management. Yes. So this has contributed to women not taking responsibility of self-improvement.
What are some of the things that women can proactively do to ride this wave of opportunities with AI, with flexibility, things like that? Welcome to another episode of Rewrite the Rules. Today, we have two amazing ladies. Our first guest, Christine Fellows. She's a co-founder of 9x9, and I'll tell you in a bit what 9x9 is. She's been in Asia for 35 years, which basically makes her half Asian by now. She's been running multinational companies, and currently she serves on multiple boards. And we will know more about her journey as we start the conversation. My second guest is April Swando Hu. Now, April is a co-founder of 9x9, and that's why she's here with Christine. She's also founder of Youth Leaders Divorce, bringing voices from youth and women around the world. She's an entrepreneur of EdTech companies, basically democratizing education for the world. Welcome, ladies, to our episode.
Thank you, Ritu. Lovely to be here.
Great. So I'm going to start a little bit by the name 9x9. What does 9x9 stand for?
So 9x9 actually in the Chinese word is 9对9, and the word 9 means longevity. And as you can see from the logo, we've used that script and also representing sort of the curvature of probably a woman. But the origin of 9x9 is that Christine and I founded the nonprofit in 2021, which was 9 years before 2030, which was the SDG number 5, having women to have equality achieved. According to the last World Economic Forum metric, we're like 132 years behind, which we are here to put a halt on. And that's what 9x9 is that we thought we wanted to highlight that there's an urgency and that we have a plan. It's an action-oriented, data research-based action plan.
Wow. I mean, name is really amazing. And like I said, it's very intriguing when I read it. Which kind of brings me naturally to the second follow-up question. How did both of you meet? Because I know both of you come from quite different worlds, but now working together. Tell us, how did you meet?
So we met in Hong Kong, actually, I can say on the 26th of January.
Wow.
And it was 27 years ago. We met in the maternity ward in Hong Kong at the Matilda Hospital. Coincidentally, it was the day both of our children were born. It was my first child, my son, and April's third. Yeah. And we were both walking the corridors, just throwing babies, and we had a chat. And truly, that was the beginning of us becoming firm friends. And we'd both come from quite different backgrounds, but both were very much raising our families in Asia. We both had very strong conviction and strong values about equality. And we just clicked. We built families together. We actually moved to Singapore at a similar time. And it was when we were in Singapore during COVID that we got together and started talking about sort of what was going on in the world in terms of the disproportionate impact on women that was having. And that's really where we decided, we needed to understand the data. And there's very little data that is Asia focused. And so that was really the beginning, saying, well, why don't we go and find people and start to do the research to really understand the Asian context of equity.
Right. And I think that's such a great point about the Asian context, because similar in my work, the idea we came up with Rewrite the Rules, the book, and then the podcast was, again, that we were somehow reading a lot of frameworks, a lot of good books, a lot of good articles, but they were missing the Asian context. And that's quite nuanced. Asian context is quite nuanced, and sometimes a lot of those mix. So I'm glad you decided to do that. I want to jump a little bit into the report. This is the hard copy of the report, but there's also a soft copy. This is your latest research work, right? Firstly, I love the title, The Moment of Truth Report. It's called AI and the Future of Women in the Workplace. I do want to understand a little bit of your journey because you mentioned you met 27 years back. Both of you have had an illustrious career in your own capacity. You being an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, I was reading your profile, and Christine, you led some really big names in terms of companies. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
As Christine and I are looking back on our very abundant paths, ranging from personal, our children. Yeah. I'm a mother of 4. Christine's a mother of 3. And our very much Asia-based lives of the last 30 years. I've been really reflecting at this juncture, what next, what to do. I come from a family of school builders, so I've always believed in education. And right now it's even more about how to create an education experience that is timely, affordable, and that could really, really be for a better world. And right now, AI, definitely this incredibly powerful technology is AI for good. So that's one theme. My other theme then is very much about action and creating dialogue between the East and the West. I'm Chinese American, born in California, lived all over the world. I strongly believe the need for dialogue and in-person dialogue. That is what's brought me to this point of being very strategic, leveraging areas that I feel could really make a difference. So education is a cutting point, is an entry point, but actually action projects. And 9 by 9 is an example where we're creating framework and particular action plan for individuals, managers, and businesses to actually take advantage of this opportunity. Right. And I strongly believe that with your platform, we could actually really make true changes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's our time, I think, right? At the juncture of AI and education, it's a great melting point right now. Christine, what about you?
I was born in Australia, have been in the region for a long time. Our work covers the Asia Pacific region, and so have spent all of my career operating at sort of managing director, CEO level businesses that cover all of the markets in the region. I was in the media business, media and entertainment and technology. And we have a majority of our employees are female, but a minority of our leadership are female. And that is unfortunately reflected across so many industries. And I started to, as a woman who was rising through her career and very ambitious, I myself experienced extraordinary bias. And raising children and being someone who was deeply family-oriented, I found it just incredibly challenging to be successful in terms of the sacrifices one needs to make and the compromises and the guilt I kept feeling. And it really struck me that I'm also one of the privileged women. Yeah. And the many women who work for me were having the same struggles. Yeah. And it was something that successful women didn't talk about, how tough it is. Yeah. I used to see successful women as role models and think, wow, you can have kids and a career. And what I found as I was going through my career journey was it was really difficult and no one was talking enough about it. That, for me, I think, became a driving force.
Great. When you were talking about role model and successful women leaders, not talking enough about the realities of actually rising through the ranks, is a topic that I personally am very passionate about, and that's one of the reasons why we want to get women leaders here who can actually serve as role models for our emerging women leaders, and not just kind of paint a really rosy and perfect picture, but really talk about hard truths, but also talk about things that they did, right? So I'm glad you talked about that. Okay, I want to come to the report. As people who were kind of leading this research, was there anything in the report that surprised you?
I have always been a minority. I was one out of 50 engineers at Yale when I studied my electrical engineering degree at Yale. We were only 30% women at the Stanford Business School when I was there a few decades ago. And even now, continuously in as an entrepreneur, in fundraising, in many contexts. I am the only woman, the only Asian. And like Christine, I think I've come through this thinking, well, this is the way it is. But I now strongly recognize that, in fact, there are many biases. Many of it is for women. So now coming back to your question of 9 by 9, I think what I was really struck is that is the difference of the East and the West approach to women, about women trying to be more vocal, particularly in Asia, the culture, that the woman is seen to be quiet, to stand behind the sons and the fathers and the husbands. So this report highlighted this affinity to be quiet, to be supportive, to be more careful, or to be more empathetic, which is a role as a listener, is actually a handicap for what is now a turning point of our industry and of the society. So I would say I was really surprised what in the Western talk in the past decade was to lean in, get yourself on the table. And this has always been a challenge for me. You know, Asian women, it's against your grain. You don't pull up a chair and sit at the table. This report highlighted to me that maybe there's another way to get yourself to the table, and that is to be more proactive with learning. Be creative, be aggressive, and take on the learning, the opportunity to use AI to help other women to do so, or other people. And that kind of sisterhood, I think, has to be beyond the family. Yeah. It has to be more professional, career-driven, and more metric-driven. And that was one of the findings that we have that reinforce my suspicion on why isn't it working.
I agree on the whole thing about this whole thing of speaking up and being out there. You know, a lot of Asian culture expect their women leaders to be a certain way and expect women to be a certain way, and therefore then to break that mold is very difficult. But I also really appreciate the fact that you said is that there are other ways of doing that too, and that's good, because you don't need to be what people call inauthentic. Of course, you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone, but you also want to find your own way to do that. Christine, any surprises for you?
I think the greatest one, and just to give people a context of what the research is, it was a research on the impact that AI would have on women's ability to succeed in the future workforce. We were looking at 29 million profiles with our quant partner LinkedIn across the Asia-Pacific region, as well as qualitative part, which was a deep dive interviews with HR leaders and technology leaders to understand, as at the moment around 85% of companies in the world are starting to use AI in one function or other. Right. Only 29% of workers in the AI sort of industry are female. Correct. And so our research was really looking at that hypothesis, which is, well, it's really early days still, which is the good news. Yeah. And so at this early juncture, if we believe that AI will reshape organizations and reshape the future of work, how are we going to make sure that we've got an awareness and strategies that will inform companies such that as they build out this extraordinary future where AI can power incredible innovation and efficiency and productivity, that women will be able to fully participate? The thing that was surprising for me, I suppose, was around the fact that companies and managers and actually women themselves are simply not aware of what's going on. They're not aware of the risk. And so right now, before we even get ramped up, there is a significant participation gap and things are regressing for women. Yeah. And companies are not thinking about it. Nobody is taking a filter across the AI strategies or the business cases or the organizational structures that says, how are women participating in this? It's just not happening. You know, I do think we're at a different pivotal moment, which is that we're regressing globally. On the willingness of organizations to develop proactive strategies around gender equality. And I think we've got to be really, really aware of that and speak about it. And so this report to me is so important because it's at a time where we can look forward knowing change is going to happen. It's not too late, which is a great thing.
Exactly.
And we can start to build strategies. So the big surprising is no one's thinking about it, no one's talking about it, And there definitely is real risk. And I do want to say there's real opportunity as well.
Absolutely. It's right, because everybody is talking about AI, but there's also constant talk about talent crunch. And sometimes I wonder if organizations are really struggling with getting good talent, then how can they afford to ignore 50% of the workforce, which is women, right? So there's a little bit of a dichotomy there. So there is very interesting, and it is, I think, truth number 6, which to me was very interesting. And I'm just reading from here, which said, there was this, I think Coursera's put out this number saying that only about 32% of the people who enrolled into their AI program, only 32% of them were women. So basically, women are lagging in the course enrollment.
So I think behind that, there may be another truth somewhere there.
Yeah.
Is that many women are, because of their heavy workload and also caregiving responsibility, they simply don't have time to go and do self-driven learning. That's one. There's another one of our data is that we find many people are waiting for approval. 51%, I believe, is the number. Double check it, but they're actually waiting for a direction from HR or management. So this combination has contributed to women not taking responsibility of self-improvement.
It's so true. And AI job postings have tripled in the last 5 years. And you just alluded to the talent crunch piece, and it's all wrapped up together. Only 15% of hires in the AI areas are happening internally. So there's a big, let's hire externally for AI. And as we said at the beginning, only like less than 30% of those are women. So if you're going outside, and those are the jobs that are getting up to 50% premium in terms of salary. So you're just continuing to extend the gender gap. On the Coursera data, the very small number of the sign-ups to start courses on AI are from women. But what is also interesting is women are more likely to sign up for a beginner's course than an intermediate course. Men think, I've got to learn AI. I'm going to start an intermediate because I know all that basic stuff. We as women don't like to own any our accomplishments until they're really, really solid. We don't like to go for an application for a job until we've got all of this. And this is a perfect example. And men tend to be like, I'll just wing it. Let me jump in. One is women are starting themselves at a lower sort of perception of where their skills are. Even when they have skills, they're not putting them onto their profile. They're not putting their hand up in the office to say, I'll be part of the pilot team, or if they're doing a cross-functional work team. Women are not volunteering for those because they think they're not quite skilled enough yet. Women are dropping out of the Coursera courses at a higher rate than men because they just find this is all in my spare time stuff. And women are caregivers for the community, the elderly parents, the children. They don't have time when they get home. So that all of the structure around self-driven learning does disadvantage women.
You made a really good point about the women waiting for permission, and I turned to that page. It's about 59% of women waiting for clear AI policies from their employers.
And actually, Ritu, that's a good thing. The fact is, in a world where the greatest risk around the speed at which we're adopting AI is the governance piece, the ethical use of AI, the boundaries around safety and privacy. And women's tendency to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more reluctant to race ahead is actually a positive in this world, a great positive for organizations. However, organizations are not recognizing that yet. And I think that's probably one of the things in the framework for change that we'll discuss is for organizations to start to think about what type of behaviors should they be rewarding?
That's true. And that's what I was thinking. The misuse and the proper use and the policies, I think women are going to be great at that. But organizations realizing that it's actually a strength is the key, right?
We call it in one of our tools building while flying. 85% of organizations are going to be investing seriously this year in AI. The commitment to AI is about speed. It's about speed, getting use cases, getting efficiencies out there, getting a return on your investment. And so speed and presence is being rewarded as opposed to the quiet, judicious,
That's
ethical
correct.
care. And that's happening at a larger tech company
That's
level,
correct.
but it's
That's
certainly
correct.
happening in organizations. And so while those traits of women are a positive, at the cycle we're in terms
Yeah.
of this new technology, it isn't what's being
That's
recognized and rewarded.
I want to add, though, there are 3 opportunities, and those 3 are one is the nature of the size of businesses in Asia, also the different demographics of the population, again, more pronounced in Asia, and also the changing organizations. The majority of GDPs, over 90% are actually from small, medium-sized companies, and they are usually from 1 to 50 people. Many of them tend to be operated by women. And this is, so this is a very natural strength for smaller, more agile companies to take on the task to get on with AI, to adopt this, and not see it as a company approved sort of self-improvement thing. In the West, much more the employment and the revenue generation are of middle and larger sized companies.
Right.
So this is an interesting shift as the world is shifting to more to smaller, medium, and maybe arguably more empowered owner companies. The second issue is about the demographics. Again, so this Gen Z, the Alpha Gen, and again in Asia, we have over 50% of the population that are younger. Many of them are brought up in a digital world. Yeah. And again, it's a great opportunity for them to take on and bring on new practices to use technology to accelerate. And here I'm going to put in a little personal call, is particularly for Gen Z women that are going into career and family junctions of their lives. You know, there's often this broken career ladder issue, often for women who are balancing at the crossroad of family or career. I would say this is actually a perfect opportunity to not say no to either.
Yeah.
Do both. And then the final one was about was the different changing of organizations. This could be a great opportunity for HR function in the past that's often very, very administratively based, doing personnel records and hiring vacation days, to really shift, have that be taken over by technology, AI assisted most likely, and really go back to people management, championing talents, bringing people, bringing out that what humans are, what we are, and particularly this is a natural strength of women who have that. The listening, the empathy, the patience, and the holistic view.
In fact, when I was reading this report, I was like, while these numbers tell a story, but there's so much opportunity behind that. And there's so much, of course, what organizations can do, managers can do, but individuals, right? A lot of our listeners, in fact, majority of our listeners fall into bracket of 25 to 35-year-old. We have about 64% are women and rest are men. So we've got both audience. What are some of the things that women at that junction, they've spent a few years in the workforce, what are 1 or 2 things they can proactively do to ride this wave of opportunities with AI, with flexibility, with hybrid, work from home, things like that?
And I think we need to keep reminding ourselves the challenge around gender equity is not a women's problem.
Yes.
It's a societal, economic, organizational issue. And so it is the responsibility of men equally to help address that. So it's wonderful to hear that you have so many male allies that are listening to your great work. While organizations need to change and are starting to think about some of the things, and we're drawing attention, we're all saying there's an optimistic future here if we get this right. And I think that's what the message of the 9x9 report is. So organizations, there's a lot of processes and policies and great change that they can start to make. Managers are mostly the most significant influencer in an organization of women's careers, and managers are still skewed male, so that's a very important sort of area. And the report lists at each of these areas in an organization, and it's very integrated. Some of the strategies and the tactics that can be undertaken by both organizations and majors. But let's talk about women themselves. Make mistakes and experiment publicly in an organization. And this all goes back to, I know you've talked a lot about imposter syndrome, and this is the world over. However, to create safe environments where women feel they can experiment and make mistakes and have fun playing around and experimenting with AI. And a lot of organizations are doing wonderful work now with female cohorts that are, doing hackathons for young women and that sort of thing. And the second piece of community is forming women's networks where you can talk about sort of things you're trying and things that are working and prompts that are working and apps that you're using and what have you. Women are more likely to use AI apps in their personal life than at work because they don't like to be seen to be making mistakes at work. With the last, there's really three in our action plan, is around sponsorship. I tend to feel that women are a little over-mentored and under-sponsored. Mentors are very, very important to help guide one's career. Sponsors are people who will push the door down for you. And we need, as organizations, to develop sponsorship programs. We need, as women, to ask for sponsorship. Yeah. And it really is as simple as that, as asking for it. You need people in your company, whatever size your company is, who are going to be interested in you being successful and help you do that.
I'll just make 2 points adding on to Christine's, focusing particularly the age group you mentioned from 25 to 35. So I think there are two areas. One is that the world is changing, and these next 5 years are probably going to be the bumpiest. Yeah. Because of the onset of agentic AI, because of geopolitics. And this is the time where I would say for somebody 25 to 35 to really see what is their personal passion. What is it that they really want to do? How important is family? Because that time is also when you'll be starting a family. And that is also the time where you may have aging family members who may not be beyond this 10, 15 years. So I think these are really important personal questions to ask because these will stay with you for life, whereas the rest of the world there's going to be a lot of changes. So in this bumpiness, to stay grounded. Stay grounded by figuring out what is your personal passion, what's important to you for family, and make connections with people that, your in-person connections, whether it's your kids, young kids, or partner, or parents, because those will not be permanent. That's message one. And the second one is about the sponsorship. It's almost like our prompting that we're all learning to do better, is really ask. Ask for the kind of sponsor that you want, whether it's from an individual or for an organization or from your project or mission. Yeah. The more precise, the more clear you are, and be ambitious. You got the 25 to 35, you have another 50 years to go. You could do huge things. So those are my two comments. Yeah.
No, lovely. Because the title of our podcast is Rewrite the Rules. What is one rule you're hoping to rewrite, or probably you have rewritten, whether it's through your work at 9x9 or in your personal life?
Of all of this is make really great friends. I feel so blessed having and again, friendship is one of those things that will last. For years. Yeah. So rewriting the rule, I've in the many years that I've come to, I've decided I'm a girl who likes to rewrite rules. I will say what I've learned now is to rewrite it by going for low-hanging fruit. Leverage the system. I used to be like, if I had a way to rewrite the rule, I would choose the most difficult one that I could do it completely myself, because if I fail, I only have myself to blame. That's not the way to do it. It's okay to rewrite the rule, but do it together with other. Rewrite the rule, do it together with people, and layer it off of something that is already there. So that's me rewriting my own personal rule on how to rewrite rules.
Awesome. Really. Very profound, very profound. Yeah, leveraging the system, low-hanging fruit. Yes, it doesn't have to be that difficult. Like I often say, in the programs that I run for women leaders, I always say, don't try and change the world at like one day, right? Like, let's just start small. So thank you for kind of reaffirming. Christine, what's your rule that you've rewritten or you're rewriting?
I grew up in a certain sort of world, right? The era that I was making my way in the world was one that I think is different than the one that my daughters are building their lives in. And so while I'm really proud of the things that I've done, I would say if I was able to have an opportunity to do things differently, and my great hope for them is that they do have, is to really in all areas to be able to live authentically. So in the workplace, to really bring your whole self to work, to be able to build a life where you can truly be yourself, live your values, work with organizations or people or partners or communities where your values are aligned with those. I mean, quite honestly, this generation is doing it. I so celebrate it. That rule, which I didn't have an opportunity to do, which was just redefine success in your own terms. You know, what I thought of success was what all those men were doing, you know, is to you. I think that's really important.
What's next for 9 by 9?
We work across sort of 3 different areas. We do research, and so this was an enormous undertaking. We had Microsoft, HSBC, Ashby Communications, LinkedIn, just tremendous sort of large sponsors, a huge project across the region. And so we will continue to do reports and research as impacts on the workplace that will disproportionately affect women become clear, and we want to make sure we have it. So research is one piece. There's still a long way to go with this piece. So the second part of our work is advocacy. The advocacy is really getting the message out. The research, as April was saying, is very much action focused. What can you do as an organisation, major individual? And so the big piece for us now is around making sure we get the message out to as many companies, managers and individuals as possible. So advocacy will be a very big part of our year this year. And then the last part is community. And we bring communities of leaders together to highlight both what the research is saying and what has to change, but to really build a much bigger multiplier effect around the advocacy. And we bring, in a more formal way, we do 9 by 9 salons, and in informal ways, working with different communities of women and companies.
We have been very fortunate with not only this report, but previous, almost every year we've done a Moment of Truth report. It's something to create international dialogue. So I am trying to bring this report to the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland, across of our international associations, particularly pointing out the difference of the Asian perspective. Here's a call to anybody out there who already has existing organizations that share our vision, and let's leverage AI to do it.
Where can people find this report?
You can download it on our website, www.9 by number9.com.
Okay.
I think you're going to put a link to that.
We will put
hopefully.
a link to that. I think I'm coming out of this conversation really energized because, a lot of things that we talked about is also kind of rooted in the work I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. And also I'm excited because I'm a big believer, really optimistic about it, that we are at this cusp where there's a lot of opportunity and, so many people really advocating for this. And if they start to come together and they start to leverage each other, I think the impact can be much more, can be more exponential than each one of us in our silos trying to do, which is more incremental change. So really excited. Thank you so much for this conversation, and thanks for making time to come on our podcast.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add in, because it is, we're still in the Chinese New Year, lunar. This is the launch of the fire horse, which symbolizes action, passion. Last year was actually of the wood snake, which is more contemplative, and so I think the metaphor is really wonderful, as this year is about encouraging the audience to be passionate, to burn, and to have galloping,
take action,
to take action and gallop away.
Thank you so much, and I do have a small token of appreciation from us. So I'd love to.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ritu.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Enjoyed. You can open
Action,
it.
I'm
if you
already
want to.
like
You
that.
can. Yes, you can open
We're
it.
off air now, right? Thank you so much. That was
you're
lovely.
welcome.
That was
Yeah,
such a
thank
lovely
you.
conversation.